Another month of 2025 has passed us by, so it's time to look back at the new movies that just released. Welcome to Box of Chocolates, where you never know what you're going to get. I have 11 movies from February to rank into this tier list. I'm also going to rank them within the individual tiers, sum up the month alphabetically. Let's go ahead and jump in. I also have individual reviews for most of them so you can get my more in-depth thoughts. What were the best and what were the worst? Well, we're beginning with one that is neither of those things. Captain America: Brave New World. A movie I was really rooting for because I've always liked the character of Sam Wilson. I like Anthony Mackie. I really wanted this passing of the shield to a new Cap to be done really well. I wanted it to be successful, and it's totally fine. It's not some kind of disaster. It's not really that special. I wish it had been a lot better. It's a big step down from the other three Cap films. It's not one that I would rush to watch again unless I was intentionally watching every MCU movie. Sam is really cool in the way that he differs from Steve in the tech that he uses, the wings, the way that he fights in aerial combat, the way that you feel more of a sense of danger, especially when he's facing Red Hulk. Anthony Mackie is good, Harrison Ford is good. There's some wonky CG here and there, but on Red Hulk specifically, it's really good. The editing isn't so great in a lot of the hand-to-hand combat, but when you get the aerial combat, it gets really good. Then the Red Hulk stuff was, I thought, the best part of the movie. That was actually really intense. The way they framed Red Hulk made him seem really powerful and dangerous, and I like that a lot. There just wasn't really much going on here in the plot, especially for a villain like the leader, who's an intelligent villain and should be thinking 50 steps ahead and coming up with these genius plans. He didn't really do anything that really impressed me all that much in terms of smarts, and the plot just felt super simplistic in what was trying to be a political thriller that was a bit more on the grounded side. It just didn't have anything deep to say politically, and it didn't really have the thrills. And it felt rather inconsequential. Like, this is just a thing that occurred, and we took care of it, and it doesn't feel like what should be the triumphant start for a new Cap. Like, the story of Falcon and Winter Soldier is more interesting, of him actually trying to earn that title. I would have rather just seen that as a movie with better villains. Giancarlo Esposito is wasted. That one girl who's like the Israeli actress, and there was a whole bunch of controversy, she's barely in the movie. She doesn't really do anything. They cut her character down to nothing. A lot of the side I didn't like the new Falcon. He's just some random guy. Like, he doesn't have the chemistry with Sam that Sam had with Steve. He's just like some dude, and I never knew why I should care. Like, okay, Cap has wings now. I don't need another guy who also has wings but isn't Cap. That just makes that guy look shitty by comparison. But it's fine. It's in the middle, so I wish it had been better, but it is what it is. And now we move on to The Gorge, Apple TV Plus film from Scott Derrickson. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. It's going to go up to I liked it. It definitely is not going to be for everybody because it juggles a lot of genres and a lot of tones. It is a sci-fi, mystery, action, horror, romance thriller, pretty much. There's a lot going on. And at the beginning, when you have these two characters, Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, and they've been tasked with standing guard over this gorge. There's apparently some shit in the gorge, and their job is to not let it get out, and that's all they know. And then they start developing a romance with each other from across the gorge. I preferred the first half. When we're getting into their characters, I thought their performances were good. Miles Teller, especially because he's kind of the one who is not necessarily traumatized, kind of. He has nightmares about a lot of the things that he's done, and it has clearly had a big effect on his life. And you could tell just by the way he speaks that this is all he has. And actually really liked the romance that formed between them. But then it takes a hard shift as we see the shit that's in the gorge. And I can imagine another version of this movie where it remains kind of more quiet and mysterious and ambiguous. And I would have had no problem seeing that movie. but I also value this version of the movie where they show you what's going on and it kind of turns into a crazy monster movie with a bunch of action and a big exciting climax. Little anticlimactic at the very end, but for the most part, all the action that happened was really cool, and I respected how it was able to balance all that. It seemed like that's what they were going for. Let's see if we can shove all of these different styles and tones into the movie. And so the way it was able to transition between them actually really well, I found impressive, and so I did ultimately have quite a bit of fun with it. I could see someone, as soon as it starts getting a little more on the goofy side, being like, nah, I'm out, I'm checking out at that point. And even though I like the first half more, I still like how it balanced all of it. Next up is Heart Eyes, the new Valentine's slasher. I wanted to like this one more than I did. It's gonna go in the middle. It's gonna go in okay. Above cap. I liked the kills. I like the mask. There were some good sequences of suspense. There was one moment where the killer got to be really intimidating and badass in a way you don't always see. Sometimes slasher villains will emerge from the shadows and quickly dispatch people one at a time, but there was one sequence that reminded me of like the cornfield scene in Freddy vs. Jason. Not as good, but it reminded me of that, and that was really cool. I liked the main two performances, Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding, and I did ultimately want them to end up together. The humor was a big issue for me in this movie. I don't need a fucking Fast and Furious reference in my slasher. I just don't. I did not gel with the humor in this, and there's a lot of it. It's not taking itself very seriously. And at the beginning, when it started, I was actually really into the tone, because it starts out with that song, Amazed? And like it was really going into like the corny romantic comedy angle, really amping that up. And whenever the movie leaned into self-awareness, like mocking romantic comedy cliches or even slasher cliches, those were the good moments of comedy. When it was just trying to be funny in general, I thought it was really lame. I also thought the killer reveals were awful. It was really obvious. There was one thing they could have done that would have been even more obvious, and I'm glad they didn't do that. I was actually concerned throughout the movie, but they didn't go that route. But after a while, I was like, I think it's gonna be this, because if it's not, then they've established all this other shit for no reason. Like there's shit that they have established that they haven't done anything with. So either they just wrote shit into the script for no reason at all, or they set that up because that's going to be part of the killer reveal. And then so the identity, lame, not interesting, predictable, and the motive, like one of the worst slasher motives I've probably ever seen. And it doesn't offend me that much because the movie doesn't take itself that seriously, but it's awful. I had a little trouble getting invested in the main relationship for a while just because romance and slasher is a funny combination. You could have fun with that, how diametrically opposed they are, but it's definitely difficult to pull off because if you introduce some new guy, and I know that we're in a mystery slasher film, it's gonna be hard to convince me that this new person is not the slasher. So it actually took me quite a while before I was able to trust anybody and thus get invested in the romance. That would be cleared up by a second viewing, which I might be willing to give the movie. I'm not gonna rush out to see it again, but I might be willing to give it another chance someday just to see if it improves for me. But that held it back a little bit on my first viewing of like, I don't know if I can get into the romance because I'm just too busy distrusting everybody because it's a murder mystery. But even beyond that, there wasn't much of a side cast. That was a big problem with the mystery as well. There just weren't really, and there wasn't the friend group. There were just like a couple side characters who popped in occasionally. And so I'm just like, I don't care if it's any of them because none of them are interesting, developed characters at all. It doesn't really matter which one of them it ends up being. I wish this had been better, but it was okay because I had a decent time with the slashing element. I just didn't think the romance and the slasher were combined perfectly, and the humor was really bad to me. Speaking of really bad humor, hi Amy Schumer, her new Netflix movie, Kinda Pregnant. It was awful. It's not the worst movie I saw this month, which actually makes me want to put it up one tier higher, but there was literally nothing in it that I liked. It's not the worst comedy I've ever seen, but like if I can't name one good thing, I don't know why I should put it a tier above. There are good actors in it, like Will Forte, but he just doesn't have anything to do. His character isn't written funny. He just plays like a normal guy. So I can't really give you any credit for that. Other than that, There are no laughs to be had. I did not even smile a single time, I don't think. And the main character is just a psychopath. She pretends to be pregnant. And I can't even really explain to you why in like a concise way. Her goal is to have a family, to get married and have a baby. She's wanted that forever. So then when you get into her wearing this pregnancy bump thing and going around pretending to be pregnant, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. You have things like Mrs. Doubtfire, where what Robin Williams is doing is insane. But one, it's funny, so you forgive it. But two, you do get it, because you see that the character is a nice man, he is a good father, he does deserve to be able to see his kids. And this is a way to do that. And so even though it's nuts, in the context of a comedy, you can go along with it. But here, even just in the context of the movie and trying to evaluate her as a character, it just doesn't even make any fucking sense that she would do it. Her ultimate goal is to have a baby. This does not achieve that. Like, why are you doing it? There is no way this can end but poorly. So, like, I can't even in any way get on her side of, like, I understand why she's doing it. I abjectly do not understand. This cannot achieve your goals. It cannot end well in any way. You are not likable. You are not funny. So I have no desire for you to succeed. Starts a romance with Will Forte, and I just wanted him to escape because he was too nice to have to deal with her shit. It's just awful. It's an awfully constructed plot. You know exactly where it's going. They're gonna find out that she was lying, and then she's gonna have to say sorry, and then they're gonna forgive her. Yeah, no shit. It's just so lazy. No effort put into that part of the script at all. And it's not even done in an interesting way. Because you can execute cliched things well, but they don't. She doesn't do anything to atone. She just says sorry, and eventually they say, we forgive you. And then the movie stops. And it was directed by Adam Sandler's nephew. You think he got the job based on talent? I wonder why he got the job. But now we have Last Breath. I did not review this one. I saw it at a mystery movie. It was okay. I'll put it here just because I'm a slasher fan, and so I had fun with Hard Eyes. Might be able to revisit it some. Do I want to put it above Cap? Well, no. No, actually, I'll put it below Cap. This was okay. It was fine. It was solid. It's a true story. There was a documentary with the same title, and now this is a feature film version about these guys. They are saturation divers. They dive down deep into the ocean to like fix pipelines and shit. Very dangerous, very admirable that they put themselves through that. And this is a story about one guy who gets stuck down there. His oxygen tube gets disconnected, and he's down there without any oxygen, and they've got to get down there quickly and pull him out. And it's totally fine. It's just not very special. It's not very memorable. The character work is practically non-existent. The main guy is just like, he loves his fiance. That's about the deepest we get with him. His fiance, her deepest character trait is that she's the fiance. There's just not much there. Woody Harrelson is good, but he can do this role in his sleep. There's just nothing special here going on with him. He's the guy who's about to retire. Simu Liu is good. Actors are competent, and it's a harrowing story. We understand the horrors of being trapped at the bottom of the ocean, but the execution of the characters and of the story is just very simplistic. And if you're going to make a narrative feature film, that's your chance to actually expand upon things like character. Even if you got to exaggerate a little bit from real life, that's kind of the point. Because if not, then you could just watch the documentary and see the real people. And even the actual situation, I thought, all right, yeah, this is decently done. I didn't feel like it was anything particularly compelling or grabbing. Like, the main character's unconscious the whole time, so it's not about like what he has to do to get out of it. It's just like they got to get down there and they got to grab him. And there were some moments of suspense there for sure. It was totally serviceable. I think it did a decent job. If you're interested in the story, here you go. I haven't seen the documentary, but I kind of feel like I would actually just recommend that. But, you know, it's fine. I'm gonna forget about it. Speaking of forgettable, we have Love Hurts, starring Ke Huy Quan. I wanted this to be a lot better too. Valentine's action movie. It's gonna go in the okay tier, but that's a little bit generous. It could easily go in disliked it. I'm gonna be a little bit nice because I liked Ke Huy Quan in the role, and the action was good. I genuinely did enjoy the action scene. The action kicked in right away, and I was like, okay, all right, I'm on board. And the first act had good action, and the third act had good action. There was like no action at all for the whole second act. And that would be okay if anything else was mildly compelling, but it is not. There was no effort put into making a story here at all. None. Some of the shit that you learn about these characters, you just learn via narration. So it literally feels like they forgot to tell a story and they had to narrate one in later. It is the most simplistic action story ever conceived. The characters are very flat. There's very little going on. I did not invest in the romance. There's just nothing there besides the action. They take time to go focus on these comedic side characters and their little subplots, and it's like, guys, this movie is short and you have no story. You need to spend as much of your runtime as you can making me invested in the story. You don't have time to be doing side shit. So if you're an action fan, watch it, fast forward through the middle, and then you'll be good. That's the best way to experience it, because you're not going to miss anything. I wish I had liked it more. I really didn't, but the action was good enough, as it is an action movie primarily, for me to put it at the bottom of the okay tier. I'll be a little nice today. Next up is The Monkey. This is complicated. I was very mixed on this as well. I didn't know what to expect going in because I didn't like any of Oz Perkins' stuff until Longlegs, and even that I thought was incredibly overhyped. This, I'm going to put it up here in the liked it tier. I did have a good time mostly. I would watch it again, but it's another instance of a lot of the humor not working for me. You got a monkey, and it's cursed or evil or some shit, and when it bangs its little drum, they couldn't do the symbol because Disney or Pixar copyrighted that for Toy Story 3. You can just do that apparently. Okay. Weird. The drumming actually works better because it's a better build-up. But it plays its little drum, causing a Final Destination sequence to happen and something in the environment to go crazy and kill a person. And that's really entertaining. The kills are gory and weird and goofy and a ton of fun, and there are a ton of them. And I thought Theo James was really good in a dual role. I liked him a lot. I liked his relationship with his son. I liked a lot of what this movie was doing, but it's very goofy. And some of it really worked. Like, this is so ridiculous that I'm having fun. And some of it felt like Perkins was just writing any goofy line he could come up with and just like, yep, that's it, good enough, I'll leave it in. And maybe you could have tightened him up a little bit because some of them just didn't come across as funny to me, just came across as really awkward. Like, I could kind of feel some of the energy from people around me in the theater of like, I feel like I'm supposed to laugh at this, but nobody is actually laughing right now. There were a lot of those moments, a lot of weird moments that you have to get past. So that's why I'm putting it below the Gorge. I liked some of the highs more, but as a whole, I was more mixed about it. But I am still putting it up in the liked it tier. It's going to be a mixed reception type of thing for sure. A lot of people are just going to be weirded out by its weirdness. I didn't really feel a tonal issue, as some people did, thinking that like it tries to be too many things. I don't think so. I think it's just trying to be irreverent and silly the whole time. It's just a matter of how much that humor actually works for you. And it only worked for me about half the time, but there were some great kills, and there were some genuinely funny moments with those kills. So I'm still waiting for that Osgood Perkins movie that, like, yes, really hits me. He has another one coming out later this year, so maybe that one, I don't know. But I'm liking him a little bit more as time goes on, at least. Next up, we have another movie that I did not review. I saw it at another mystery screening. It's My Dead Friend Zoe. This is about a girl who was serving in the army. Her friend Zoe died, and now she's back trying to put her life together. Ed Harris is her grandpa. She's trying to get him into like a nursing home and just deal with her PTSD and everything. And it was also okay. Overall, it's probably better than Hard Eyes, but I'll put it below just because I did get more personal enjoyment out of Hard Eyes. Could go below cap. It's close. We'll just put it there. Who really gives much of a shit, honestly? But it's totally solid. It's not something that I would revisit, but the characters are likable. Ed Harris is really good. The main couple actresses are really good. I think it's totally serviceable, just not all that memorable. I think the biggest issue is that when you get to the reveal about exactly what has caused the PTSD. It is not something that would be typical for why most vets experience trauma. And so the messaging gets a little muddied, because there's this whole thing at the end, at least there was at my screening, where they were talking about how it's so important to discuss these issues. And I think there was even a thing where they were like, you should pay it forward and get other people to come see this movie and get tickets for them. And that's been a thing with a couple studios in recent years, and that shit just seems shady to me, and I don't like it. But with the actual reveals in this movie, it's like, okay, you're not actually discussing why so many of these soldiers come back with PTSD. Like, felt like they were a little too afraid to actually criticize anything that the Army does that might result in some of these issues. They were just like, the issue totally exists. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not really going into why. This character's experience is very different than what most actual soldiers' experience are and what they have to put up with. You're not really capturing that. So in a movie where you're kind of trying to capture that, the messaging is a little iffy. But anyway, it was still okay. Next up, this is the most recent one I saw, Naja 2. This came out of nowhere. I never heard of the first one. It's Chinese. I watched it. It's free on YouTube so that I could get caught up on the story. And then I went and saw this one because apparently this is the highest grossing animated film of all time. Okay. Everybody in China loves this, I guess. It is based on mythology, so I guess they were just really excited to see it brought to life. And it made so much money. Like, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I start seeing ththese reports. Naja 2 passes Inside Out 2. It's on its way to being the first animated movie to hit $2 billion. It's like, oh my God. So I had to see it, and it was okay. I'm going to put it in the okay tier. I don't know where I want to put it. I'm going to put it here. Yeah. That'll disappoint some people. A lot of people are loving this. But it was all right. You know, it's fine. I get it. The mythology is really cool. The action and the animation are really cool. Towards the end, the scale gets crazy. The scale of things that are happening in the story and of the sheer number of things that they had to animate. There's a ton of shit popping off. Like, shit is going on, and when you think that might be it, just over and over again, more shit starts happening. And so they really put a lot of effort into making this like an epic 2-hour and 20-minute story with all this shit and this beautiful animation and fight scenes and choreography and cool powers, and it was pretty crazy. The humor, again, that's a big thing with me in February. Same with the first one. The humor is very childish. You got like fart jokes and piss jokes and shit, and it doesn't mesh when I'm like trying to really get invested in like the deep Chinese lore and understand the war of gods and dragons and demons and shit. And then you got this dude farting, and I'm like, oh, well, shit. That's a really big part of it for me. That really drags both the movies down a lot, so that I'm like, yeah, I really like the cool parts, but all the other parts that aren't that, I just don't get super invested in. So I'm glad a lot of people are loving it. It's crazy as a success story. And when they make more, I hope you love that one too. I'll probably drop out at this point because they're just not really for me personally. But I respect it. And the parts that are really good are really good. And I still think it was fine. Just didn't really do a lot for me. Next up, Paddington in Peru. That middle tier is getting pretty stacked, but it's going in there too. We'll put it there, I guess. Whatever. It's fine. This was a step down from the first two Paddingtons. It was totally okay. I don't know that I would rewatch it. I feel like I'd kind of be satisfied by the first two because this kind of feels like it's retreading things. I like the idea of moving the setting to Peru because it's different, but it also feels like it loses a little bit of the charm. And this one just doesn't really feel like it is as impactful. This is a different creative team, different director, different writers. And to me, I can't prove this, but it feels like the way Paddington 2 was a step up from the first one, it feels like if Paul King and that creative team had stayed on, they might have tried to really up the ante and improve more and more. And it feels like this team more so was trying to just recapture what the first two did. And the first two already did that. And you just don't do it quite as well here. The humor just isn't quite as sharp. The writing and the story isn't quite as sharp. There's not really much of an arc for the characters. Like it's in there, it's technically, but it's pretty damn basic. Even for Paddington himself, they try to throw in something at the very end to kind of cap off his character arc, but it's not something that was ever really like seriously addressed throughout the film. They bring it up at the end just so they can then close it off and say that he had an arc, and it's just not that impactful. It doesn't have the heart that the first two had that felt so genuine and sincere. This one felt a little bit like, we gotta make another one. And so it just wasn't as good. But most people who like the two before it will probably like it. I still liked it fine. It's decent, but it's just a step down. And then we got this fucker at the end. The Unbreakable Boy. Worst movie I've seen so far this year. Oh man. I said a lot in my review. It was like 16 minutes long. I don't want to go through it all again, but it sucked. And no, it doesn't suck because Zachary Levi is a conservative. It doesn't suck because it talks about Christianity. No, it sucks because the things in the movie suck. I didn't really think Zachary Levi was that good, personally, because in the scenes where you're meant to feel the warmth of this father and his feelings towards his autistic child, I never felt that. It always felt fake to me, because this character, I blame the writing more than I blame him, the character was the most unlikable asshole I've ever seen. This is a movie that is about autism. It completely sidelines the autistic child. He is a side character, and it is all about his dad, who's a complete douchebag for the whole movie, even down to little tiny things. He's always feeling resentful of his son. He's always not paying attention to his son, causing him to get hurt. They specifically point that out in the movie because his son has like brittle bone disease. They specifically say he never gets hurt when he's with the mom. He only gets hurt when he's alone with the dad because the dad sucks. And the whole movie is just about him being an asshole. He has an imaginary friend. Just as an adult, he just has a large bearded man who he hallucinates all the time. So that's concerning. And it's a true story. It's based on a book written by the guy himself, the asshole guy. And he just wrote a movie to be like, yeah, I hated my autistic son, but then eventually I read the Bible and I realized I'm actually awesome. And I'm not even exaggerating that much. That's kind of what the movie is. Because he does eventually, he spirals so much. He gets to the point where his imaginary friend cannot tell him, hey man, don't worry about it, you're actually a good person anymore. He has to face the facts and realize, okay, he actually does have a problem with alcohol and with being a dick. And all they really do after that, they show that he gets 2 months sober, and they show that he read the Bible. He read a verse about submitting to Jesus' will or whatever, and that's supposed to be like, I forgive him now? No, suck my dick. You don't get forgiven because you now believe in Jesus. I guess he always did, but because you reread the words of Jesus, that just doesn't just make you a good person now, Russell Brand. So that's my issue. Not that there's Christianity in the movie. My issue is that this is supposed to be about autism. It doesn't do anything to inform or educate or spotlight autism in any meaningful way. It sidelines autism to be about Jesus. And it doesn't even do that in a good way, because it just uses Jesus as a shortcut to act like that's a character arc for the main guy and we should just forgive him now. It utilizes it really poorly. And the fact that it's a true story is so much worse because it's baffling. It's like, okay, so your story is that you were a dick face. That's it? That's your whole story? Why did you feel the need to write a book about that and then get it turned into a movie? It feels like fucking narcissism. It does. This is a man who has an imaginary friend who constantly talks to him and tells him how good he is. So this feels like a guy who needs affirmation from others because he probably deep down feels bad about how much of a dick he was to his family. And this is all speculation about a real guy, which is a dick move in and of itself. But whatever. I'm here. I'm doing it. Feels like he feels bad about his actions. And so he really feels like he needs to believe that Jesus forgives him. and he needs to get his story out to the world so that everybody else can forgive him too. I don't forgive you, sir. This is his book. So again, remember, at the end of the movie when it says, I actually got better, he wrote that. So I don't even trust it. Did you get better? Like, you say so, but can I get somebody else's word on that? The movie literally ends with his wife having this moment of like a close-up, and the sentimental, cheesy music is playing. The movie's very cheesy and cliche and unfunny, by the way, but that's the least of its problems. But the music is playing, and she's like, you're so great. I admire you. I love you so much. And it just feels like this dude jerking himself off. I'm like, what is this? And the whole climactic moment with his son, because the son keeps talking throughout the movie about how his dad doesn't see things the way that he sees them. And at the end of the movie, the son says, on that day, my dad finally saw what I saw. He saw that he was a great dad. You son of a bitch. You man who wrote this book, you actually just sidelined the emotional climax, centering your autistic child, and made it about saying that you're a great dad. Bizarre. Weird shit. Could remain my least favorite movie for the whole year just because of the weirdness, the weird implications of it being a true story, and the fact that it's dealing with a real serious issue. I'm sorry, pretending to deal with a real serious issue. So this guy can jack himself off and talk about Jesus. And it's stupid and bad. That's February for you. As you can see, it was a very okay month. Much better than January, although we had some real stinkers. Disappointing in many ways because I wanted some of these to be better than they were. But still an okay month. As you can see, horror was on top for me this month. Like, yeah, again, Hard Eyes could probably be lower, but in terms of some of the fun that I had and that I may be willing to give it another shot down the line, I put it up there. Gorge and the Monkey were fun for the most part. So I'm looking forward to March. There's a lot. There is a lot coming out. I don't know how much I'll get around to. I don't know how much will be good. But I was compiling my list over here on this sheet of paper, and it looks like I saw 11 movies, January and February, both. March, it might be double. We'll see. There's a lot. But please leave your favorites and your least favorites from February down in the comments. Talk about all the shit that I said here about all of these movies. To recap, bottom to top, The Unbreakable Boy, piece of shit, kinda pregnant, not funny, love hurts. They forgot to put a story in there, but the action was good. Last Breath, totally fine. Nausea 2, really cool action and animation and mythology. Just doesn't really appeal to me. A lot of the humor is very childish. Paddington in Peru, step down from the first two. Cap, step down. Decent, some good stuff. Just not that special in the MCU. My Dead Friend Zoe, also decent. Not perfect with its messaging, but totally serviceable story. Hard Eyes, good slasher. Bad rom-com in certain ways. Now we got the top tier, The Monkey. Little too goofy and weird at times, but for the most part, the kills really carried it. And The Gorge, very fun, very unique mix of tones and genres. And that's the list, and that's all I have to say about that. And I've been recording for a while, and I need to stop. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and we'll be back in March for more reviews and another one of these and whatever else I do. I don't know, but I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.